All righty. Good afternoon. My name is Wally Conway, broadcasting live from Monument Commercial Building Inspections to share a program with you that we call When Good Wood Goes Bad. What was the origin of this program? The origin of the program was this. For years and years and years, in the inspection universe, we would be in essentially disagreement or at least points of confusion with real estate agents and also with home buyers and home sellers over what should be on a WDO report, the wood destroying organism report, so prevalent in Florida for documentation of wood rot and wood destroying organism issues in a real estate transaction. The outgrowth of that was I wrote a program for the Florida Real Estate Commission called When Good Wood Goes Bad, the effort being to just exchange information so that individual real estate agents would understand precisely what the requirements were set forth by the state, how to read that WDO form, and the hope was that an informed agent made for an informed consumer and things got better. Truth of the matter, they did. This program has been presented by me in more than 35 real estate boards around Florida. If you've got any questions for me and you happen to be with me live on Zoom, just put them right in the chat and we'll answer them in real time. If you're watching on Facebook Live or LinkedIn or on YouTube in the recording, whatever the platform is that you're watching this on, we'll have an easy mechanism for you to reach right out to me. We'd be happy to send you the slides, do anything we can do to help and support you in your professional career and endeavors. So on we go. When good wood goes bad. I'm a big fan of keeping things very, very simple, very straightforward. Real estate transaction, very stressful time. It's stressful for buyer, stressful for seller, stressful for the agents, the lenders, the appraisers. Everybody's in a high state of anxiety, a lot of money involved. And if we keep things simple in the way we communicate, and we communicate early and often so that we're always predicting what may happen next as opposed to excusing what just happened, suddenly things get simple. So what are the only three things that can make good wood go bad? Something could burn that wood. Something could impact that wood. It got hit by a truck, a meteor fell upon it, a sinkhole ate it, some giant structural failure occurred, relatively rare, or the most common thing, billions of dollars a year in Florida alone, something eats it. Why does something eat wood? Because there are organisms, wood-destroying organisms, that were delivered to us by God to eat wood in the forest. Well, those little critters can't sort the difference between the forest and your house and the wood items in your house, so they eat wood. And remember this, wet wood tastes good. It's imperative that we keep things dry. The drier things are, the less likely we are to have an infestation or a wood-destroying organism eat the house. The question becomes, how do I know what a termite looks like? Subterranean termites specifically. It's relatively simple once you've seen an ant and a termite side by side. One of these is an ant, one of these is a termite. How do we tell? The one on the right with the little skinny waist is an ant. The one on the left with the more tubular body is in fact the termite. There are other identifying things, the bent antenna on the ant, the longer wings on the termite, but I always just look toward that body position. When I see that skinny waist, I know that's an ant. Information is always a good thing. At our website, both at Monument Commercial Building Inspections for the commercial folks, as well as on the residential side, Home Pro Inspections, we've got everything that I'm going to share with you delineated right there. You can download it. Everything also links right to the definitive source of information. So as things change in the state or in the industry, you'll know that right away. This WDO form issued by the state of Florida, the form is developed by the state of Florida, issued by your WDO inspector, comes with instructions. I don't know anyone who had ever read the instructions in a real estate transaction that I hadn't already introduced it to. So it's important to know there are instructions. Why? Because when there's a question or a point of confusion or a point of disagreement in a real estate transaction, you've got to get to agreement. There has to be a meeting of the minds, or that house can't move forward, or that commercial building won't move forward. It won't get sold if everyone doesn't agree, that meeting of the minds. So these instructions are issued by the state of Florida from the Department of Agriculture under the Bureau of Entomology. So it's all regulated, even the form itself. That's where the form comes from. The WDO form that you've come to know and love, not really, but that form is the last 2 pages of a 5-page instruction. This is that instruction. The first 3 pages tell you how to read it. One might ask the question, why do we use that silly form? because in statute and then regulated by the Department of Entomology, it says that we must. Anytime there's a real estate, it's used for a real estate transaction. Why do we report wood decay fungi? I know this is a frustrating point. So you got a WDO report and it says on there, wood decay fungi on siding adjacent to sliding door at rear porch. That's probably one that comes up 50 times a week just in our company alone, it feels like. The reason we report wood decay fungi is it says right in the instruction, this includes wood decay fungi. Doesn't mean it's rotted, doesn't mean it has termites, it means it has fungi on it. And if that fungi is left untreated, what will happen ultimately is it will then have damage. So it's the state recommending that we're proactive in reporting so that the owner of the property, the buyer of the property can be aware of it and take appropriate action. All this noise in the background is Comcast trying to fix our phone system. How long must you, as a dutiful and beautiful real estate agent in the state of Florida, be you residential or commercial, maintain a copy of a WDO report used in a real estate transaction? 5 years. Yes, it says 3 on the screen, but the reason it says 3 is this particular instruction is speaking to the WDO inspector. So they have to keep it for 3 years, you for 5 years. But it's very interesting. What it's telling me is that these things are on file somewhere. They're not on file with the state. They're on file with the real estate agent. They're on file with the pest control company or the WDO inspector, which makes it very easy to get to because the state says that every time there's a WDO inspection done, a notice must be pasted or placed. It's a sticky, that little 3x5 sticky. You've seen them if you've been in houses or commercial buildings after they've been inspected by a WDO inspector. They're always in one of 4 places: on the water heater, on the electric panel, under a kitchen sink, or an access to a crawling area. What that lets you do, let's say you're about to take a listing. You ask the person, have you ever had a problem with termites or wood destroying organisms? They say no. Could be they've been there 3 years or 5 years or 10 years and the house is 20, 30, or 50 years old. If you go to those 4 places, the water heater, the electric panel, the kitchen sink, or the access to a crawl area, you'll see that little 3x5 sticky, and that will tell you the name of the pest control company, the name of the inspector, the date they were there, if they inspected, yes or no, and if they treated it, it will tell you what they treated for, let's say subterranean termites, and what they treated with. Let's say that was chloridane, if it was a long time ago. So armed with those facts, you now know more than you would have known, and you can also then call the pest control company. Now, they are not required to release that document to you, but they always will if you ask for it in just the right way. And what you say is, I am working with a buyer for this particular building. They are interested in pest management, be it termite treatment, lawn and ornamental, or pest control, general pest control. Could be rats, could be whatever's on their mind potentially. And if you, the pest control operator, would please share that WDO report for me. You can give them the address and the date, and that will help my customer to make a decision on who to choose for pest control. I've done this hundreds of times, never been told no. So now when you have that information, you have information that the buyer or seller for that matter wouldn't otherwise have, and that can help them to make a right decision based on what's discovered, what's disclosed, and what's damaged. All right, how long is a WDO report good for? This is one of the most contentious things in real estate. I've heard everything from 1 day to 3 years. The truth of the matter is, if the real estate agents, the 2 agents, have differing opinions, one said 30 days, one said 45, or whatever differing opinion, and then they share those with the parties to the transaction, we're back to not having a meeting of the minds. What the state says is it's not a guarantee, which is important to know. There is no guarantee in a WDO inspection. The only way to get anything that's close to a guarantee is to have a service contract or bond purchased from the pest control company. That's the guarantee. Absent payment for it, there is no guarantee. You might ask, well, why not? Well, the reason is things are constantly changing. And as it goes on to say in the instruction, it should be good the day it was done, meaning it was accurate the day. You say, well, what good is a document that's only good for that instant in time? It's a little bit like an X-ray. It gives you a snapshot in time of what was observable at that particular time. Now, there's other things that are going to be unobservable. We don't know if there's termites in the wall unless they show some evidence exterior to the wall. The state recognizes that also. That's why they say it's only good for that moment in time. And by way of example, I would share with you or say to you or ask of you, have you ever had termites in your own home? If that answer is yes, we're a friend, a neighbor, family member, we're a listing, doesn't matter. The day before the termites swarm, what did you see? Typically nothing. That is the risk that's recognized by the state, and that's the reason it's only good the day it's done. It's also the reason the state does not have anywhere in the instruction a description of a reinspection. There is no such thing as a WDO reinspection. Yes, that term is used all the time, doesn't exist in the statute. And the reason for that is the state has the expectation that every time a WDO inspection is done, every time a WDO form is generated, that the entire structure was examined. That's to reduce the risk to the buyer, so the report is as accurate as possible. So if you're working with WDO inspectors who seem to be making things convenient or making things less expensive by only checking that one little spot that was a problem before, and they're just checking to see if it was repaired, the two things: one, they're not complying with the law, certainly not the spirit of the law, the intent of the law. They're not serving the customer very well, and that's the reason they work cheap. Not good. Be sure that every party to the transaction gets a copy of every WDO report that's done, the buyer as well as the seller. We want people to know exactly what's going on. I've never been in trouble for disclosure. We often have difficulty with non-disclosure, right? Somebody didn't tell somebody. If only I had known, I never would have done such and such. When you have information, share it. This is on the form itself. This is no longer the instruction. We're looking right at the WDO form. Very few people actually read the whole form. They usually just look to say, is it clear or is it not clear? When you read the whole form, you see some interesting things. It says the report is made on the basis of what was visible and readily accessible, meaning they're not moving furniture. They're not cutting holes in walls. It's walking around, and they also do probing or sounding to see if it sounds rotted or damaged. Does not constitute a guarantee or the absence of things. It's just saying, we're doing the best we can. If you want a guarantee, you gotta buy that specifically, right on the report. Note, capital letters, note, this is not, what does it say? Not a structural damage report. It should be understood there may be damage, including possible hidden damage present. That is on every single WDO report. That is part of the form. And the form also goes on to say further investigation by qualified experts of the building trade should be made to determine the structural soundness of the property. This is the State Department of Entomology recognizing that the typical single license holder WDO inspector doesn't know anything about structure, doesn't know anything about buildings. They're there to look for bugs and wood rot. They don't actually know the impact of it. This is why I'm a very high advocate, a strong advocate. This is why every single inspector in both companies, at Monument Commercial Building Inspections as well as Home Pro Inspections, not only are they licensed to inspect the building, they're also licensed to do the WDO inspection so that they can make commentary as this of structural impact, what needs to be done to repair. The idea is to be able to provide the highest level of service for the least amount of money and the least amount of time. That's the why. All right, baseline practices. You don't need to know the baseline practices. What you do need to know is that they do exist. Up until the baseline practices were formulated about a decade ago, a WDO inspector could legally and correctly do a WDO report and never visit the home. They could pull into the driveway, look around, and disclaim everything and get a clear WDO. That was very, very common practice. It still does occur. It doesn't occur as much as it once did, but it does occur. The intention of the baseline practices is to define essentially what accessible means, and they do that for every area of the home. What does it mean when you say, what criteria need to be present to say a roof was inaccessible, or an attic was inaccessible, or a crawl space was inaccessible in other areas, right? So you can't just say, oh, it was inaccessible, I didn't go look at it. It says how big do we expect the opening to be into the crawl space? How tall and in what conditions are expected to be in the crawl space? The idea is we want to be sure the WDO inspector is safe, and we want to be sure they're not being lazy. So if you have a WDO inspector that's 6'6" and 300 pounds, there's every probability that they cannot follow the baseline practices. There is a physicality to doing this correctly. Yes, they need to know technically what they're doing, but they also need to be physically able to get all the places they need to get in compliance with the instruction and in accordance with the baseline practices for performing. And a real fun quiz for you to do is ask your present WDO inspector, tell me about the baseline practices for performing WDO inspections. Or if you really want to be fun, ask them for a copy. Expect crickets after that. A question: can a Florida licensed home inspector legally do a WDO inspection? No, they cannot. Let's ask it another way. Can a Florida WDO inspector legally do a home inspection? No, they cannot. However, can one person hold multiple licenses? We'll use me as an example. I have a contractor's license in Florida. I have a home inspection license in Florida. We have a WDO license in Florida. What does that let us do? It lets us act within the license scope of each of those licenses so that all the information that the customer needs, that the agents need, the insurance company needs, the lender needs, all can come from a single source on a single visit to make that experience as cost-effective as possible, as convenient as possible, and as rapid to deliver as possible. So that, my dear friends, is the Cliff Notes version of when good wood goes bad and how to interpret it in the WDO. If you have previously registered for this on Zoom and you were with me live, I do have your email. Thank you for registering, and I will send you the notes from this as well as a few other documents. If you're watching on Facebook Live and you have a question or you'd like to have the documents associated with it, just send me a note via Facebook and I'll take care of that for you, or you can just put your email in the comments. If you are on LinkedIn or YouTube, same answer. Whatever vehicle you've enjoyed this program on, please just reach out and we'll help you in every possible way. I'm also very enthused to help you grow your business. If you'd like to have a one-on-one Zoom conversation to look at some business development things we're doing that we're happy to provide also to real estate agents, we'll do that for you. So I respect you, I appreciate you, and you have a beautiful day, and watch out for termites.